Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a bit of a quiet week in boxing this week. Before we start, I just want to give a big congratulations to G-Man for making it onto DAZN. If there is anyone out there that put in the effort, put in the work, and had the knowledge base to go with it, and someone who just, he's 24/7, that man. That boy is 24/7 at this game. So if there's anyone who deserves to make it onto a big platform, it's G-Man. So a big shout out to G-Man. I love it when good things happen to people who thoroughly deserves it, and that man thoroughly deserves it. So well done, G. All the best. You will prosper more. So big up to G-Man. Last week we had Johnny Fisher. And I thought that was going to be some good fun. That fight was going to give us a few rounds of action. It didn't. It went, Alan Babbage was like a man who stepped off the platform in front of the train, weren't he? Unfortunately. But Johnny Fisher marches on. A lot of people sort of getting on Johnny Fisher's back saying he's this, that and the other, or saying he isn't this, that and the other. I'm just going to enjoy the ride because Johnny will give us some good nights, however far that journey goes. And I can guarantee this, whatever level Johnny gets to and finally meets his level, he won't be blown away by anyone. Johnny's going to give anyone a scrap in there for, however long. So, well done, Johnny Fisher. He will be returning quite soon on the Catterall Prograde card in Manchester. So we'll see Johnny again then. After that fight, Johnny Fisher talked about how he was sparring Derek Chisora in the build-up. And that brings me on to my first port of call and first subject. I was listening to Parsons on the stomping ground talking to Frank, old Bricktop. And this is what Parsons and Bricktop had to say about the upcoming fight with Derek Chisora and Joyce.
Screams British boxing to me is Joyce Chisora. I'm so excited for the fight. The card's all, by the way. It was sort of when it was announced, I think everyone just sort of went, "Core, that don't half make sense, does it?" We know Derek Chisora loves the O2. That was his old stomping ground. Joyce in a real sort of fight where I think a lot of people don't know what he's got left, which is why it's perfect to have Derek there. But he's fighting for his career, really, safe to say.
Well, they both are. Joe can't afford to lose that fight. I mean, I've got on record saying I thought Derek should have retired a couple of years ago. Now, I may be right, I may be wrong. I'm going to find out on the 27th. We'll see where we are. Derek said, Derek genuinely believes he can beat Joe.
Now, Core, that don't half make sense. Wasn't the first thought I had when this was announced. I mean, we talked about this before, and we talked about stylistically how Joyce being a long, straight puncher, thudding puncher, and how Derek loves to eat leather. Yeah, as for Core, that don't half make sense. No, I couldn't think, any further than that. Far be it for any man to tell any man what they should or shouldn't do with their career, but I don't want to see Derek in a ring again. And this is coming from a position of, I like Derek, I like Joe, I like everyone. I don't have a lot of hate for many people these days, but you don't want to see Derek come out of this sport without all his faculties, still there. And a lot of people are making comments now that Derek doesn't speak as clearly as what he used to. And even Frank in that little excerpt saying that he said a few years ago that he believed Derek should hang it up. And he's changed his tune. And as for Parsons, nothing screams British boxing more than Joyce versus Chisora. Well, I'm going to think of a few things that probably scream British boxing in a more respectable way than Joyce v Chisora. I just said at the time that I think this fight leaves a bit of a bad taste. I don't want to see Derek in there. And I'll reiterate the point. None of us have the right to tell any man what to do, and far be it for me to do that. But I just don't want to see Derek in there getting his head smashed in by Joyce. Maybe if that makes me soft or weak or whatever, if you have a different view. But I know we talked about this at the time and most of us agreed. Most boxing fans who love the sport for what it is don't really want to see that and aren't really on board with that. So that little excerpt just left a little bit of a bad taste. And the sort of the glee in which Parsons talked about that, from any other point other than kind of a bloodlust, I've no interest in that. Will I watch it? Of course I will. Does it make me a hypocrite? Possibly. Does it mean I want it to happen? No, I don't. So yeah, be interested to know what you lot think. That brings me on to the other major bit of news this week, and that is probably Chris Eubank signing for Boxer and Ben Shalom. Probably a good move for Eubank, I suppose. There's much talk about this Canelo fight, which is a strange one for me. It seems a strange one from Canelo's side. I mean, from Eubank's point of view, you're made up, aren't you? Because you're getting probably arguably the biggest paycheck of your career at a stage in your career when you possibly shouldn't be getting that fight. I just find it weird from Canelo's camp that they would see that as a viable opponent, even from a sales point of view. Doesn't really matter, I suppose, who Canelo fights. He's going to sell whatever. But Eubank is one from really kind of left field. It sort of leads on to another point, and this was, I think, is it Umar on Boxing King Media speaking to Dominic Ingle, who really only does interviews on Boxing King Media anymore. Dominic Ingle doesn't speak a lot. He doesn't do a lot of other outlets, but I'm a big fan of Dominic Ingle. I like what he says. He's very frank, very to the point. But this is Umar talking to Dominic Ingle about how well managed a career Chris Eubank has had.
Chris over the years, but I was looking at his career. There's not many fighters that have fought on pretty much every TV network. I think he's been on Channel 5, ITV, even some of the pay-per-view channels that aren't around anymore. He's even been on them. He's going to potentially land this Canelo fight. Isn't that a really well-managed career, would you say?
Yeah, listen.
Maximising your earnings?
Then again, I think it's more...
So, does fighting on every network for every promoter possible and every promoter available and every TV outlet available, is that the indication of a well-managed career? Because in Boxing King Media's opinion, yes, it is. Now, I don't think many... Now, depending on what way you look at this, do you look at this from a monetary point of view? Because if you look at this from a monetary point of view, when you look at Eubank Jr.'s ability versus his revenue, he's probably overperformed, and you probably could say that from a revenue point of view, he has had a very good career. He hasn't ever won a major world title. Most people would agree he's certainly not been elite level. And there were arguments or discussions as to whether he is world level. I suppose you could argue world level to a degree, but if we're talking about how well his career has been managed, he's had a lot more fights. I was looking down his record on BoxRec earlier, and he's had a lot more fights. For the amounts of inactivity he's had, he's like 36 fights, but he has had a long career, but he's had long spells of inactivity and sort of some uninspiring matchmaking down the years. But do you look at a career do we balance a successful career or a well-managed career on how much you earn or the legacy you leave behind? I suppose from a point of view of Eubank, if you're never really going to be elite, you can then sign that off and then go down the monetary value. And then, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We're maximizing your earning revenue, your earning potential during your active career. You'd be stupid not to. But do we count that as a well-managed career? Yeah, I suppose in monetary point of view, we do. But in a back catalogue point of view, or you look down a career and a career that you can be proud of, or a resume point of view, is that a well-managed career? Are spells of inactivity and leaving one promoter for another and leaving one TV outlet for another and one promotional banner for another, is that a well-managed career? Certainly as you watch his actual fight career, I don't think many would argue, especially when Eubank Sr. was in control, that didn't strike me as being a well-managed career. Yes, I know Eubank Jr. did wring as much money out of every promotional company and every promoter that he could, and that's what led to a lot of breakups and a lot of fights falling through. So I suppose you could argue maybe yes, but I suppose there's a bigger degree that could argue no, that's a poorly managed career. I don't know, I'll be interested to see what you think on Chris Eubank Jr.'s career, because Chris Eubank Jr. is a bit of an enigma, and his career's been a bit enigmatic as well. I was speaking to Joe Stunner about this not long ago, and Chris Eubank Jr., I quite like the fella. I listened to him in a couple of long form interviews, and I kind of come out of a newfound respect for Eubank Jr. I quite like the fella. He always took on the role of villain very, very easily, but that was almost after the public had set him as the villain already, and he just kind of went with it. But he's come through some shit, Chris Eubank Jr. So I like the fella. No hard feelings towards Chris Eubank Jr. I quite like the guy and give him my absolute full respect. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Chris Eubank Jr. Good career, bad career, well managed career, well handled career. I don't know. Anyway, I'll see you all soon. That was it. I'm out.